Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of CultureCast. Today we will be discussing T-Jean and His Brothers by Derek Walcott. I'm Julie.
I'm Natalie.
And I'm Mulder.
Before we talk about the story, I have a few questions about Derek Walcott. For a writer who has received such critical acclaim, his work wasn't well received in his own country.
That might have something to do with his upbringing. Derek Walcott was born on the island of St. Lucia, a former British colony in the West Indies, on January 23, 1930. His mother was a teacher and loved poetry and arts. His father, who was an artistic person, died on the early ages, around 31, before Derek and Roderick even were born. As a part of African family with European descent, he reflects the complex and difficult colonial history of Trinidad, about which he writes and explores in his works. Derek received an excellent education and uncommonly fine training in English, which was not available to other non-whites in Trinidad. Because of all of this, he was often viewed as an outsider by the native populace. He later studied at the University College of West Indies in Jamaica. After graduation, he moved to Trinidad in 1954 and became a critic, teacher, journalist. And he was hired as a teacher by Boston University in the United States, where he founded the Boston Playwright Theater in 1981. Now he is a professor of poetry at Essex University.
Alright, I think I understand where the hostility comes from. But he has won a lot of awards. He has quite a few famous works, doesn't he?
He published his first poem in local newspaper at the age of 14. 5 years later, he borrowed from his mother $200 to print his first collection, 25 poems, which he distributed on the street corners so he would repay the loan. His best dramatic pieces are The Charlatan, written in 1962. In 1971, he won Obie Award for his play Dream of the Monkey Mountain, written in 1968. Another play, The Joker of Seville, was written in 1972. In 1992, Walcott has won the Nobel Prize in Literature. The Nobel Committee depicted his work as a poetic oeuvre of great luminosity sustained by historical vision, the outcome of the multicultural commitment. Walcott's plays generally treat aspects of West Indian experience, often dealing with the socio-political and epistemological implications of post-colonialism and drawing upon various forms such as fable, allegory, folk, and morality play. In addition to his Nobel Prize, Walcott's honors include a MacArthur Foundation Genius Award, a Royal Society of Literature Award, and in 1988, the Queen's Medal for Poetry. He is an honorary member of the American Academy and Institute of Arts and Letters.
That's a lot of awards. Has he written anything more recently?
Since 1950s, Walcott has divided his time between Boston, New York, and St. Lucia. His work resonates with Western canon and island influences, sometimes even shifting between Caribbean patois and English, and often addressing his English and West Indian ancestry. His epic poem Amorous 1990, which loosely echoes and references characters from Iliad, has been critically prized as Walcott's major achievement. The book received praise from publications such as The Washington Post and the New York Times Book Review, which chose the book as one of its best books of 1990, and said the book is an effort to touch every aspect of Caribbean experience.
That's all pretty fascinating, but we really should be getting along to the play.
In this play, the theme of good versus evil is prevalent. It also explores the theme of conflict between the lower class representative of the native population and the wealthy colonials. The story takes the form of folk tale as the forest creatures narrate the story of three sons as they try to defeat the devil. As one of his most famous works, T-Jean and His Brothers exemplify some of the themes that are present throughout Walcott's works. The play is representative of ancient dancing with the devil, legend that simultaneously incorporates modern politics of the West Indies. The play is based off St. Lucian folk narrative and depicts archetypal characters fighting the devil. Throughout the play, the number 3 plays a very important role. There are 3 brothers and 3 scenes to the play. The importance of the number 3 comes from several sources. The first being the tripartite theory of knowledge, belief, truth, and justification. Additionally, the number 3 is very important in the Christian faith, representing the Holy Trinity, which is the dominant religion in the Saint Lucia and Trinidad.
I think we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's start with the setting. The play is set in Trinidad, right? Do you know anything about the culture there?
The Trinidad history starts with the settlement of the islands by American Indians. Christopher Columbus explored the island on his 3rd trip in 1498. The Trinidad and Tobago were colonized by British, French, and Dutch, however, eventually ended up in British hands. Because of this, British influence had a lasting effect on the culture of the island. Persistent British colonization in the West Indies began in the early 1600s. A long tradition of slave rebellion was characterized by violence, bloodshed, and mass murder of slaves. Trinidad and Tobago took its independence from the British Empire in 1962 and became an independent republic in 1976. In Trinidad, English is official language, or better to say Trinidadian English, which is based on Creole languages, which reflects American Indian, European, American, African, and Asian heritage. Trinidad is a multi-religious nation, but the main religions are Protestant Christians, Roman Catholic Christians, and Hindus. Literature takes root from oral storytelling from African slaves in European literary roots of French Creoles and in the religious and folk tales of Indian indentured immigrants.
I can see a lot of that in the play. This play starts off in the rainforest of Trinidad. The frog describes Tijan and his family's home as a small cabin that sits atop a mountain. The air is very foggy and the air is very rainy as well. The frog is also telling the story at night. As for certain sounds, whenever a brother loses the challenge and becomes vexed by the devil, there is an explosion and the scene ends with the devil eating their flesh. There is also a common thread of singing in this play. Goujon sang when he was leaving home. Mijan sang the song of silence. Tijan sang when he was comparing himself to David and Goliath. And the devil sings every time he eats a child for dinner.
That's a lot of Jeans. Who are all these characters?
Goujon is the oldest son. His power lies in his physical strength. He insults his younger brother Mijan for being too book smart, thinking that that's not going to get him anywhere. Goujon had too much confidence in his iron arm, and that eventually became his downfall. Mijan is the middle child known as the smart intellectual brother. He has a plan when he goes to confront the devil, which involves remaining in complete silence. Tijan is the youngest of the brothers, and although he has some strength and some intellect, his power depends on his faith in God. Tijan trusts that the love of God is enough to overpower the devil, just like his mother taught him. Mother is a widow who raised her sons on her own. They lived poorly, which was part of the allure of this challenge, because they would have the opportunity to live in wealth. The devil is the antagonist of the play. He is unable to feel any real emotion and is only concerned with finding his next meal. He can take on any form, and in this play, he is also the old man who acts as though he wants to aid the brothers, and the planter, the white man who is the brothers' boss when they go to work on the plantation. Balaam is the demonic soul of a strangled child. He is very angry and very envious of the brothers who are alive and who have a mother who loves them. He works for the devil. Frog, cricket, firefly, and bird are sort of narrators of the story. They act as friends to Tijan and his brothers.
Sounds like a pretty interesting group of characters. I'm sure there were some pretty twisted situations.
The story opens up with Frog telling the other creatures about the story. Balaam approaches Mother with her sons and offers them a challenge against the devil. Balaam informs them that even though the devil is powerful and has done all manners of evil to humans, including war, instilling anger and jealousy, and even weakening prayer, he can't enjoy it because he can't feel. So Balaam's challenge involves this: evoke emotion in the devil, make him feel anger, rage, and even human weakness, and they would live in wealth and peace. If they fail, the devil will eat them.
Sounds difficult, and with a pretty big penalty for failure.
Well, in the next scene, Goujon tries to sneak out of the house while his mother and brothers were asleep. When she awakens, she tries to convince him to stay, but Goujon believes he is too grown and it's time for him to leave home. He goes to work on the plantation with absolute confidence, primarily in his strength, and believes that by working, he will achieve monetary success. The devil then takes on the form of the planter and angers Grosjean by constantly calling him another name and undermining his work, until eventually Grosjean loses all his patience and gets eaten by the devil.
You would think the other brother wouldn't make the same mistake.
In the second scene, Mi-jean finds land too hard to work, so he leaves to become a ship captain and eventually a lawyer. He thinks he will succeed because he has a better plan than his brother. He plans to beat the devil with silence and a smile. The devil, disguised as the planter, is frustrated at first with Mi-jean not speaking. Without talking, the devil doesn't know exactly where he's at with Mi-jean. But then there is a goat Mi-jean has to look after, who keeps getting loose, and the devil keeps making him run after it, which ignites Mi-jean's annoyance, but doesn't vex him. Devil beats him by trying to take away what matters most to Mi-jean, his intelligence. He does this by comparing Mi-jean's intelligence with the goat's intelligence, and insulting him by saying the goat has more intelligence than him. Mi-jean loses his temper when Planter embraces him and the goat starts bleeding again.
The third son succeeds though, right?
Yep. In the final scene, Mother tries to keep her last son at home, but Ti-jean is not afraid to meet the devil because of his trust in God. Mother advises him to trust his instincts and to be logical. Ti-jean is ready to meet the devil, and he compares himself to the small boy, David, going against the giant Goliath in the Bible and being triumphant. Before he meets the devil, Ti-jean encounters the frog, the cricket, the bird, and the firefly. They are worried for him as well and try to convince Ti-jean to go back home, but he refuses. Ti-jean discovers the old man is a fraud because of the tail he found underneath his skirt. And Ti-jean is confronted with the devil, but he cannot take his face, so he asks him to put the mask back on. The devil tried to use the goat that angered Mi-jean to do the same for Ti-jean. Ti-jean defeated that maybe scenario by turning the goat into a eunuch. Ti-jean then infuriates the devil by telling the plantation workers that they had to burn all the crops and his house and leave him with nothing. Balaam tries to convince the devil to be fair, but the devil is not listening. He says that he is the devil, he does not have to play fair. So the devil proceeds to kill Mother, who was back in their hut. Ti-jean is devastated and starts to sing at the encouragement of the frog. Ti-jean's singing and weeping brings forth tears on the devil's face. The devil is amazed at the sorrow he's feeling, and Ti-jean finally earns his gift. Balaam is there and begs Ti-jean to ask the devil for his life, and that is what Ti-jean does. The devil then leaves, but not without telling Ti-jean that they will meet again because the fight is still on. Ti-jean leaves with the creatures and his new little brother, Balaam.
That all sounds hilarious, though a little depressing.
This play is an example of a tragicomedy. The subject matter is serious, as it deals with lessons in morality and the current state of society, but it is told in a comedic fashion. The devil calling Grosjean by the wrong name, or Mi-jean constantly having to re-catch the goat, are humorous, but both of these actions result in the death of a brother. In the end of the play, Balaam is born, but the other two brothers remain dead. This bittersweet ending is common in many tragicomedies.
I thought all the woodland characters were cute.
One narrative technique utilized by this play is that of a frame narrative. The story opens with the woodland creatures conversing, and one of them begins to tell a story. This story takes the form of a fable. However, the story is narrated by a frog and other woodland creatures, and is told about human beings. A traditional fable normally entails anthropomorphized animals. The plot of this story takes place over the course of a prologue and 3 scenes. The prologue helps the audience to become accustomed to the mystical world in which the story takes place, while the 3 scenes comprise most of the action of the play. As was already discussed, each scene depicts the actions of one of the brothers after they leave home. A story in 3 parts is a common storytelling technique, and adds to this play being viewed as a fable. The characters in this play speak in a dialect. The brothers, Grosjean especially, comes across as uneducated due to their incorrect grammar when speaking. Even Mi-jean makes several mistakes, being said to often mix up the words debate and debate. The devil also adjusts his way of speaking to better suit the roles he takes on. When he is disguised as the old man, he speaks like a native, but when he is disguised as the plantation owner, he becomes more aloof.
I have an idea. Why don't we read a passage to give our listeners a better idea of what we're talking about? How about the closing scene? I'll be Ti-jean, Mulder, you can be Balaam.
Alright, a frog also has a line in there. I will read that too.
I guess that leaves the devil for me. So we are reading the scene where Ti-jean has beaten the devil and is asking for his reward. Let's begin. I never keep bargains. Now tell me, you little fool, if you aren't afraid.
I'm as scared as Christ.
Burnt my house, poisoned the devotion of my servants, small things, all of them, dependent on me.
Now, you must now keep your part of the bargain. You must restore my brothers to life.
What a waste. You know yourself I can never be destroyed. They are dead. Dead. Look. There are your 2 brothers, in the agony where I put them. One moaning from weakness, turning a mill wheel for the rest of his life. The other blind as a bat, shrieking in doubt.
Oh, God.
Seize him. Throw him into the fire.
Mama!
She can't hear you, boy.
Well, then you pay her what you owe me. I make you laugh and I make you vex. That was the bet. You have to play fair.
Who with the devil tries to play fair?
I say you vex, you lose, man. Give me my money.
Go back. Bull him!
Yes, he seems vexed, but he shrieked with delight when a mother strangled me before the word light.
Be grateful. You would have amounted to nothing, child. A man. You would have suffered and returned to dirt.
No, I would have known life, rain on my skin, sunlight on my forehead. Master, you have lost. Pay him, reward him.
For cruelty's sake, I wish you were born. Very well, then, Tijan. Look there, towards the hut. What do you see?
I see my mother sleeping.
And look down at your feet, falling here like leaves. What do you see, filling this vessel?
The shower of sovereigns, just as you promised me. But something is wrong. Since when do you play fair?
Look, they're in a hut. Look there, Tijan, the walls are glowing with gold. Tijan, can't you see it? You have won.
It is only the golden light of the sun on my mother asleep.
Not asleep, but dying, Tijan. But don't blame me for that.
Mama!
She cannot hear you, child. Now, can you still sing?
Sing, Tijan, sing. Show him you could win. Show him what a man is. Sing, Tijan. Listen, all around you nature. Still singing. The frog's croak doesn't stop for the dead. The cricket is still merry. The bird still plays its flute. Ever down, little Tijan.
To the door of the breath you gave the key. Thank you, Lord. The door is open and I step free. Amen, Lord. Cloud after cloud like a silver stair. My lost ones waiting to greet me there. With their silent faces and starlit hair. Amen, Lord.
What is this cooling my face? Washing it like a wind of morning. Tears, tears. Then is this the magnificence I have heard of? Of man, the chink in his armor, the destruction of the self. Is this the strange, strange wonder that is sorrow? You have earned your gift, Tijan. Ask.
Ask him for a life. Oh God, I want all this to happen to me.
Is life you want, child? You don't see what it brings?
Yes, Tijan, life.
Don't blame me when you're suffering, when you lose everything, and when the time comes to put 2 cold coins on your eyes. Sir, can you give him life?
Just look.
I am born, I shall die. I am born, I shall die. A wonder and the pride of it. I shall be a man, Tijan, my brother.
Farewell, little fool. Come then, stretch your wings and soar. Pass over the fields like the last shadow of night. Imps, devils, bats. Iaz, Beelzebub, Kakarot, soar. Quick, quick, the sun. We shall meet again, Tijan. You and your new brother. The features will change, but the fight is still on.
I feel like all of that has much deeper meaning than a simple fable.
The major theme of this play is colonialism, and every character in this play symbolizes a larger group within society during this time period. The brothers each represent a phase of opposition to colonial rule. Grosjean represents when the population relied on their strength to endure the oppression. The colonial presence disrespected these people, much like the devil does by calling Grosjean by the wrong name, and their strength proved to be insufficient. Mijan represents the next phase of opposition, when the native populace had required some knowledge and felt that this would give them even footing with their oppressors. This again failed. The final brother, Tijan, represents the approach that the author felt was most appropriate for opposing colonialism. Faith in God, common sense when dealing with the colonials, and accepting help from friends and allies, shown in the play as the woodland creatures, finally led to defeat of the white landowner. The devil and the many masks he wears represents the many forms that colonial oppression can take, the most obvious being the white plantation owner, who hires the brothers only to destroy them.
Then what does Balaam represent?
The final character in the play, Balaam, represents the nation itself that was never able to be born because of the colonization. When the devil is finally defeated by Tijan, Balaam is able to be born, symbolizing the nation that can emerge once the appropriate actions have been taken. Much of the symbolism in this play displays the morality system ascribed to by the author. The Christian religion is directly referenced by the inclusion of the devil as the antagonist. Faith in God is also prioritized over strength or intelligence, and the mother often tells her sons to trust in God. Tijan is compared to David in his struggle to overthrow Goliath. This served as a good story for the native population to identify with, as it aligned with their spiritual beliefs and the situation they were in. The native population was indeed fighting a much stronger opponent in the colonial power.
This story was oddly familiar, and I remembered another story I read recently, a play called Everyman. Both plays deal with everyday men opposing death. The moral of each story also relates to what attributes are worthwhile. Strength and intelligence did not prevail in either case, and only good deeds and faith proved to be of any use.
Another story we saw parallels between is another fable. The Grimm's brothers wrote a story called The Golden Goose. In the first act of this story, 3 brothers go into the forest to cut wood. The first 2 are mean to an old man in the woods, much like the 2 brothers in our story kick or argue with the woodland creatures, and they soon come to misfortune. The third brother, who many view as the lesser brother, is kind and is rewarded. As with all good fables, the story ends with a moral. The frog closes the narrative by stating that Tijan has overcome his challenges and acquired knowledge through the help of God. On the surface, the moral of the story is to trust in God to overcome life's daily struggles. When one looks deeper, the story delivers a lesson on opposing colonialism and how the nation may someday be born and allowed to grow on its own, free from its colonial oppressors. Thank you all for listening to CultureCast today. We will see you next time.
Thank you.